Avast, me hearties. Welcome to this edition of the Pirate Archaeologist. I am your host, the Pirate Archaeologist himself, Christopher Dean Blosser. Today we will delve into the question of what the relationship between food supply and complexity in early civilizations is. But first, we will do some recapping on what we know. We know that the early civilizations went from being hunter-gatherer societies and became agriculturally based societies. We know that groups of individuals banded together and were helping each other out with the daily work associated with becoming an agriculturally based society. We also know that with the advancement of certain technologies, not everyone had to work in the fields or the farms, and that created the division of labor. But why? What made this possible? Have you ever wondered why these civilizations were built around rivers? Rivers such as the Nile in Egypt, the Tigris and Euphrates in Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, the Indus River in what is now India and Pakistan, and even the Yellow and Yangtze rivers in China. The reason is because of this, a technological marvel called irrigation. Irrigation allowed farmers to control the flow of water from the rivers into their farmlands. This, with the invention of the plow, gave the farmers the ability to become more productive. It was in this productivity that they realized they didn't need to have everybody working in the fields anymore. People could go and pursue other interests or other jobs, creating the division of labor. But what it also did was create the ability to produce food surpluses, which could then be stored and used as year-round food supplies. The more food you had on hand, the larger population density your civilization could support. This allowed for population growth, along with allowing families who previously could not support a large family due to a lack of food supply to have more children and to support a larger family. Because of this, the city's population would grow, and you would have to build more permanent structures to support the larger population growth and the larger population density that having a surplus food supply created. Thus, growing your town or growing your village, your group of people from a small community into a small town, eventually into a small city, or even a large city, as the case may be from our previous episode when we learned about Kublai Khan and how he created the cities of Xanadu and Dadu. Now that we have established that a food surplus supply is directly related to population density and growth, what else can a surplus of food do for an early civilization? Well, it can be used for trade. Some of the earliest civilizations traded food for other things they might not have access to, like silks and linens, or even spices. This created trade routes. But you couldn't just have anyone in charge of the trade routes. You would need to create a government entity, so to speak, to control who is doing trading and what is being traded and so forth. But you would also need a way of keeping record of what is being traded and to whom this is being traded to and for what it's being traded for and how much you have to trade in order to get the same value out of the stuff that you're trading for. Doesn't that sound like record keeping? Doesn't that sound like a written form of language? It also sounds like food is being given a value, a sort of monetary value, which creates economic stability and viability, something I touched on in the very first episode of The Pirate Archaeologist. Essentially, you're treating food like money. And the more we look at it, the more society expanded, the more complex and complicated it got. This leads to the more we find out and realize that it is all a direct result of transitioning from being hunter-gatherers to a more sedentary, agriculturally based lifestyle. And if you need more evidence, you can look no further than that of the Mongolians today. We discussed Kublai Khan in the last episode of The Pirate Archaeologist and how he started the great city of Xanadu and turned his Yuan dynasty into one of the greatest early civilizations of the ancient world. But what happened after the Yuan dynasty collapsed? Well, the Mongolians, they retreated away from China. They resumed their lifestyle of having khanates and factually have wars and internal conflicts between these khanates. They became more nomadic again. They stopped having sedentary, agriculturally based lifestyles. As of today, more than 30% of the Mongolian population still practices the nomadic or semi-nomadic culture of their forefathers. Many still live in gurs, which are their round tents that are quickly erected and disassembled for the nomadic life. And in many ways, they are a pastoral society. Agriculture is not prevalent in Mongolia today because of the harsh climate. There's only between 92 and 110 days of having the ability to farm every year. And agriculture only makes up about 10% of the country's GDP. The rest of it comes from mining exports. Over 80% comes from mining exports. As you can plainly tell, food supply has a direct relation on the complexity that is a civilization. Without a food, a society will starve itself out. Without agriculture, society cannot grow enough food to survive, and thus has no need to create a centralized form of government. Now, I say this, Mongolia does have a centralized form of government. They do have cities, and the majority of them live a sedentary lifestyle. But their lifestyle, their society, is not an agricultural-based society. That is something that differentiates the society of Inner Mongolia or of Mongolia itself to that of, let's say, America or China or Europe, where agriculture funds the society. The early societies that don't have a food supply also have no reason to keep detailed records of their crops because they're using their crops to feed themselves and their family. They're not using their crops for trade. They're not using their crops to grow a civilization. Yes, you can still be a nomadic society, or rather have a nomadic culture today. But as such, you cannot support the one thing that truly makes a group of people a civilization. Without agriculture, you cannot support population growth, population density, or even population diversity. This has been the Pirate Archaeologist, Christopher Dean Blosser. And as I leave you today, I am reminded of something Dr. Maka said at the end of episode 3 of Ancient China from Above. First thing, I really hope you guys will sit there and watch that series. It's a very educational series. It's a very great series. And I am excited to see the coming episodes of that. And I hope what I leave you with today, you all will understand with my final episode of this term. Dr. Maka said one thing. He said, great empires rise, yet can be wiped out in the blink of an eye. But what they leave behind lays the foundation for all the wonders to come. And that directly correlates with the next episode of the Pirate Archaeologist. What causes the collapse of societies? Thank you for watching, and I hope to read and respond to all your comments soon. Thank you.